Good morning, and welcome to the November 15th meeting of the Committee on Special Populations. We're going to be discussing today how we are serving our students impacted by poverty and who need enriched and accelerated instruction. We're going to talk about these students because it really is important. And often when we think of these students, we think of them in terms of remediation, but that's not necessarily so. They have gifts that we have not really tapped into. And I know that you have methods that you're working that are much improved on finding these students in the school system. We are looking much earlier at the students in general to see who is available and who should be in choice programs or accelerated programs. So I want to thank you all for being here, and we'll start by introducing the persons that are on the committee. Ms. Mondrowski.
Good morning, Rebecca Smondrowski.
Good morning, Carla Sylvester.
Thank you. And if there are no questions or questions concerning this meeting, which is an informational summary, we will keep moving, and I'll turn this over to Nikki Hazel.
All right, thank you very much. Good morning. And we are very excited to speak with you today about enriched and accelerated programming, particularly through the lens of our Title I schools. And we are coming together as two offices, Office of Curriculum and Instructional Programs and the Office of School Support and Wellbeing, to talk to you about how we are supporting our students in Title I schools around enrichment and acceleration. Very quickly, just want to introduce to you who will be presenting today, because we do have some new faces. So we are excited. Starting all the way to my right is Miss Christy Clark. She is our new supervisor of accelerated and enriched instruction, our unit. And she comes to us from Prince George's County, a recent award winner of the EGAT Award, as she is the principal, and did a lot of really great work in her school around gifted education for all of her school. And so she really impressed us with a lot of the great ideas that she has for how she can support here in MCPS. We also have Rebecca Daugherty, who is the supervisor of Title I in early childhood, so not new to Title I, but certainly new to the position. So we welcome her today. We also have Nichelle Owens, director of Title I in early childhood programs. And we have Ms. Jeannie Franklin, director of the Division of Consortia Choice and Application Programs and Services. Did I get that right? It's a mouthful. Who is no stranger to this work and a huge support around helping us with supporting programs for our students. And then we have Ms. Irina LaGrange, who is new to her position as well as the director of the Department of College and Career Readiness and District-wide Programs in OSIP. And she comes to us as a former principal of Tilden Middle School. So we are excited to have both new faces and some faces that you are very familiar with combined and joining together to do this work. We also have Ms. Sheila Berlinger, who is our supervisor of elementary mathematics, in the audience, who may come up and just share what's happening around some of our work there. At this time, I'm going to turn it to Ms. Franklin LaGrange, I'm sorry, who is going to go ahead and get us started.
Thank you so much, Ms. Hazel. Today, we will discuss enriched and accelerated instruction in Title I schools, as was just mentioned by Ms. Hazel. Specifically, we will look at what the research says about gifted education in Title I schools, students accessing enriched and accelerated instruction, student performance data, and the various programs that are available to students at both the elementary and middle school levels. MCPS is one of a few districts to support gifted programming in Title I schools. As a district, we have been intentional in expanding access to students in focus groups for over 7 years. Next slide, please. Thank you. We will frame the presentation around MCPS's strategic plan, share some history, research, and performance data around Title I programs, and discuss instructional programs in Title I schools. Next slide, please. The strategic plan and its first pillar, academic excellence, focuses on increasing access to enriched and accelerated opportunities for underrepresented student groups. We will share with you the steps we have taken in collaboration with the Office of Curriculum and Instructional Programs, Title I, and Office of Shared Accountability to reduce barriers to access and ensure that all students have an opportunity for recommendation to enriched and accelerated programming. I would like to once again introduce to you Jeannie Franklin, Director of Consortia Choice and Application Programs.
Good morning. Can you hear me? Okay. Can we go to the next slide? Thank you. So you have seen this before, and it's really important that you make the connection to how we have been working on this for a long time. So this has been about 7 years, but we've been working on it every year for many years. But we have been able to make some significant changes about 7 years ago, and we just really appreciate the support of the board. In addition, the connections between the Office of Shared Accountability, the Office of Curriculum and Instructional Programs, and also with Wellbeing, we've been able to really focus for all students, because all means all of this work. So not only are we moving from scarcity to abundance, we're also looking at like the menu items, and we're looking at ways to develop the recipe, meaning we're looking deeper, not just access. We're looking at different ways of identifying students, supporting students, building a pipeline, so we're doing all of those things. So this is a great metaphor to demonstrate that we are really moving toward abundance. Next slide, please. Oh, I love this. So what I'd like you to see is that we're going to first obviously start off with the children. And what we want to make sure that you know about this work is that a lot of this work is precipitated because of our students who are being impacted by farms and in our services. So we wanted to make sure that our work really targeted them as well. So I'm just going to need the team to click. So if you click, I'm going to show you what abundance looks like. So please click. So one of the first things that we've done is help inform our families. We provide each of our grade 8 families personalized information about what programs their children can access for high school. Everybody gets a piece of paper that lists out all the different programs they have access to, in addition to saying how fabulous their local high schools are. Click again, please. Now, instead of having parents apply for programs, determining whether their children need enriched services, we can determine that. So now instead of having 4,500 families apply, we are looking at 22,000 students every year. We have lots of information, so that is a huge paradigm shift. And we are also taking the responsibility off the parent, because we're saying to them, we know your children as well. So that is a huge game changer in this process. Moving toward abundance, next, please. We've also increased, due to your support and courage, is expanding our IB programs to 3 additional regional programs. This was a real huge game changer, because the IB programs are limited in terms of what we offer in high school, but now we're saying to the entire county, in addition to the regional countywide program at IB, at Richard Montgomery, we have 3 additional places. So students have multiple places of access. So no student who really wants access to IB shouldn't get it. So we are really providing. We are nearly tripling the numbers of students. Click one more time. We've expanded, and for our earliest learners, the CES, Centers for Enriched Study seats, by 29%. And in addition, we have 64 current elementary schools with the enriched literacy curriculum, which Ms. Clark will talk a little bit more about, which means thousands more students are getting access to enrichment. And 1 more, maybe 2 more. And what we're saying in this new process, which is really important for you to know, is that every student who is identified for needing enriched services is getting it. They're not necessarily not getting it. We are saying if you need enriched services in math, you are getting it. We're saying if you need enriched services in the humanities program, you're getting it. At every middle school, we have courses, and every elementary school, we have enrichment. And 1 more. And then we have expanded enriched services. I've said a few of these. In our elementary schools, we have the benchmark advance with enrichment. Every elementary school is implementing that. We also have the enriched literacy curriculum. In the middle school, we have 2 enriched courses that students are centrally identified and locally identified for, in addition to the high school credits courses that they have. And then in our high schools, we have an explosion of programming that's occurred. So we are definitely moving toward abundance. And I'd like to pass it over to Ms. Owens, who will talk to you a little bit about the Title I efforts.
Thank you, Jeannie, and thank you for this abundance slide. It's so helpful, and it does remind me of our initial conversations and how we actually got to this place, because we were originally finding that there weren't as many children from Title I schools going into some of these programs. Next slide, please. I'd like to take a little bit of time to share how we have used Title I funds to intentionally create acceleration and enrichment opportunities in our Title I schools. The first thing I think it's really important to know is that Title I funds are supplemental, right? So if we think about every school in the district as a cake, Title I funds are the icing on the cake. And just as was mentioned earlier, there aren't many schools across the country who use Title I funds for enrichment. Instead, as Dr. Daka mentioned, Title I funds are typically used for remediation and to provide additional support, and we have been intentional in supplying or providing the resources to provide that frosting or supplemental funding specifically for enrichment. This slide shows how enrichment has progressed in our Title I schools starting in 2015 and how it has grown to the present. So during a later portion in the presentation, we'll be talking about the details, but you can see that this journey started back in, the slide says 2015, but I remember the conversations in 2014 and 2013 in our participation in your programs. The process for identifying students did not always include Title I students, and that concerned us, so we started our collaboration. Next slide, please. So we're going to talk a little bit about the research. Much of the research used to prepare for enrichment in Title I schools, was grounded in work done by Dr. Jonathan Plucker. He states that opportunities for advancing learning should be made available to all students in all communities. Dr. Plucker further states that there is a clear and pressing need for programs that better develop skills and talents of students from Black, Native American, Hispanic, and low-income families. The gifted child paradigm leaves the talents of so many students from Title I schools underdeveloped. Data shows that these students are far less likely to be placed in gifted programs. So his research was consistent with what we were seeing back in 2014. The talent development paradigm instead views talent as capable of being developed. That gifted behaviors can and are meant to be nurtured over time. This is what we have attempted to do in the past 7 years. Next slide, please. Next slide. That's just a transition. All right, so our journey to promote enrichment in Title I schools began in 2015 with what we called our Accelerated and Enriched Instruction Professional Learning Community for Title I schools. And this partnership began with the Division of Accelerated and Enriched Instruction. And the purpose was to create a leadership team, principal, assistant principal, staff development, reading specialist, a team, a cohort of staff members from the school to learn more about how they can provide enriched and accelerated instruction for all students. This was facilitated by AEI and the Title I unit and the elementary integrated curriculum team. The PLC grounded their work in equity and focused on culturally responsive teaching and a growth mindset. So shifting from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. The team also focused on embedding questioning with intention and concept development. In 2015 and 16, we also offered enriched extended day programs. So you see the programs that are listed on the screen. These are research-based programs that promote critical and creative thinking. Extended day programs are common in Title I schools, and we wanted to leverage that as an opportunity to provide enrichment in that space. So we used Project M2 and M3, Mentoring Mathematical Minds, Lego Education, Destination Imagination, Engineering is Elementary, and Code Combat. These programs were utilized after school during the school year for students in grades 2 through 5. Next slide, please. The next big step, no pun intended, used to offer acceleration for our students was to implement what we called our ELO Title I Summer Enrichment Program. And we did this as part of the same infrastructure that we use for our ELO SAIL program, which has been around for 21 years. We'll be going into our 22nd year next summer. And this was a trial run for us, right? In 2016, in the summer of 2016, we decided to implement it as a way to as a way to nurture critical and creative thinking skills through engaging, hands-on, rigorous instruction during the summer. And this was available for our students in grades 3 through 5. There were criteria used to identify those students who participated in the ELO STEP. Those criteria were InView scores, MAPS data, enrichment designation on the report card. And then I think what's unique is that we also had an advocacy component. So even if a child did not necessarily meet those targets, there were champions in the building coming from that AEI PLC. Those champions came in and said, this kid needs to be in the program. I know this kid's story. I know their data. I want the child in the program. So we were able to use advocacy for student participation. The curriculum was designed by the Division of Accelerated and Enriched Instruction, and it was a mix of different resources from some of the extended day programs that I mentioned earlier. We also took a trip over to NASA Goddard Center over in Greenbelt to gather some of their materials so that our students could really participate in some science and some STEM activities as well as reading and math. Next slide, please. Over time, ELO STEP grew. In the first year, I have to tell you, we started on a hope and a few dollars because we never even planned to do anything like this, right? But it wasn't until we had that AEI PLC that we realized the need for such an opportunity. So you see in 2015, we started small, just with grade 3. Let's test the waters, let's see what we got. And with 23 Title I schools participating and just having one grade, we had 216 children participating. As you can see, we grew each by a grade level each year, and you can see the numbers of students increased as well. During summer 2018, we were at 876 students, which is relatively comparable to the year before. But just to lay the landscape, we also had another summer program for grades 3 through 5 at that same time. So we were really proud that we were able to maintain the numbers with the competing summer program. In 2019, you can see the increase, and then summer of 2020 hit. And we paused because the district was offering all types of summer programming. In 2021, we resumed as our numbers of schools increased. We resumed, but as you can see, our data doesn't, our data shows that not as many children returned to our summer program during that time. During summer 22, we again paused just to allow everyone to participate in all of the programs that were made available, and we'll be reevaluating for our next steps for 2023. Becca will talk later on about enrichment that exists in our summer programming. So even though these numbers decreased, we continue to provide enrichment for all of our students through some strategic programs that we have in place. Next slide, please. So with our ELO program, we typically have studies, and so we studied the impact. We asked OSA to study the impact that ELO STEP has had. And the evaluation report was completed in 2019. That's after 3 years of implementation. The study found that ELO STEP does have a positive impact on student performance, specifically in mathematics. In the study, OSA asked if there were differences in mathematics performance between 2019 ELO STEP participants and non-participants, and what we found is among student groups, there were positive impacts in all of the grades. Next slide, please. So we've talked about how enrichment and acceleration exist in the extended learning space. Now we're going to talk a little bit about how acceleration and enrichment opportunities exist during the 10-month calendar, right? So what's happening day to day? We layered the program, and we realized that we really needed one champion in each of our Title I elementary schools to promote acceleration and enrichment. And the need of that champion for the work that started with the Accelerated and Enriched PLC and ELO STEP turned into the development of the Primary Talent Development Program here in Montgomery County. Our Primary Talent Development Program was considered as a part of the continued effort to increase equitable access to students exhibiting the need for rigor over time. And it also provided an in-depth instruction to extend critical thinking, enhancing the gifts and talents that children are bringing to life in the school. The Maryland State Department of Education, they developed the Primary Talent Development Early Learning Program. That's not us, right? We didn't develop that. That exists with MSDE. And for Primary Talent Development, it's a science-based critical and creative thinking curriculum integrating gifted education and early childhood education theory and practice. MSD instituted PTD, or Primary Talent Development, due to ongoing concerns regarding the underrepresentation of students impacted by poverty in Maryland gifted education programs. So our Primary Talent Development is based on the principle that all primary students require the opportunity to develop their talents and abilities. For Title I, we did a little research with Accelerated and Enriched Unit, and this was a model that was in 12 other Maryland districts at that time. And knowing the spirit of the Primary Talent Development Program, knowing that spirit is to empower teachers as facilitators of talent development throughout their early learning years, the PTD coach position was added. And that coaching position is really critical because they were responsible for leading the charge to ensure that we were meeting the needs of our highly able students and providing support to the teachers. That's the key component, being able to coach teachers on strategies and ways to help nurture the learning behaviors. I want to make sure I cover everything in there. All right, so I'm going to hand it over to Becca, and she's going to discuss some of the more detailed aspects of primary talent development. Becca?
Thank you, Nichelle. An important component of the program is capturing the learning potential that students demonstrate and develop when they are engaged in open-ended problem-solving tasks. And next slide, please. Our goal is to really build a portfolio of artifacts over the primary years that captures each student's capabilities and their growth in the 7 essential learning behaviors like inquisitiveness, perceptiveness, leadership, etc. And we look at student capabilities in these learning behaviors on a continuum that describes the intensity, the frequency, and the complexity of behaviors ranging from the readiness level all the way through the independent level. So through observation, one-on-one and small group experience, teachers and primary talent development coaches formatively measure and document these student learning behaviors, which allows them to continue to develop and nurture that critical and creative thinking that Nichelle was talking about, and to really view students through a different lens than they might typically in the classroom. The coaches do support teachers to utilize this information during planning to impact and improve the student experience. The information captured in the portfolios is also used by the PTD coaches as well as the teachers to advocate for students as part of the screening process for gifted and talented education programming in the subsequent grades. Next slide, please. And we wanted to take just a moment to hear some reflections about that student experience and the impact of the primary talent development program on students over time. And so these anecdotes are brought to us this morning by one of our veteran primary talent development coaches, Ms. Rebecca San Sebastian from Highland Elementary School.
Hi, I'm Becca San Sebastian. I'm the primary talent development coach at Highland Elementary School, and I love that I have the opportunity to teach and nurture learning behaviors in all of the kindergarten, first and second graders here at Highland, to be able to teach them to be perceptive and communicative and inquisitive through an exciting curriculum is something that I think has been really worthwhile for everybody. It's great for the teachers to see students in a light that's different than just their delivery of reading and math instruction. So they're able to see that their students are leaders, that they are persistent because they are exposed to learning behaviors that maybe they wouldn't be just in the curriculum that is provided through their classroom teachers. It definitely makes a lasting impact. We had our 5th grade promotion last year, and one of our students was giving 2 or 3 different memories that she had of her time at Highland, and one was learning to be persistent in kindergarten. So that was super exciting to hear. I do get to work with students over time, and so now my first group, they're in 6th grade now, but I have my current 5th graders I've known since, they were little ones in kindergarten. And that has been a really big advantage. I feel like because of that, I have been able to advocate for them as they go through the GT process in 2nd grade. I have been able to connect with families to encourage participation for students who have been selected to attend our magnet middle schools or center programs in elementary schools. So having somebody who has seen them over time and, in a different lens maybe than their classroom teacher has been a definite advantage. The kids look forward to the lessons. They are for everyone. Again, these behaviors are nurtured. So you might not be perceptive now, but we know that that's a learning behavior that really smart people possess. So we're going to teach you how to be perceptive. We're going to teach you how to be inquisitive. And that development is really good. It's a great thing for all kids.
All right, and on the next slide, we do have a reflection of the program and its impact from one of our Title I principals, Dr. Dorothea Fuller at Galway Elementary School. I'll just give them a moment to read that. And as you can see, Dr. Fuller really highlights and agrees that the program and the primary talent development coaches support teachers and staff to view students using a strengths-based approach, and that's one of the major goals of the program. Next slide, please. So shifting just a little bit, over the course of our time providing enrichment opportunities for students in Title I schools and developing talent through our PTD program, we have really learned the importance of project-based and experiential learning in this work. And so we have grounded ourselves in research from the Buck Institute for Education, which shares that project-based learning engages students in acquiring knowledge and skills through an extended inquiry process structured around complex, relevant questions, carefully designed projects, and most importantly, authentic tasks. And they really share that this type of learning can be transformative for students, especially those who are underserved by our education system. And so as a result of our learning, we have started infusing project-based enriching learning through our work with our Innovative Schools, Calendar Schools, and our Title I summer programs. And we have done this through partnerships with 3 different programs and organizations, which really allow for that authenticity and engaging project-based learning. And so I'm going to share just briefly about each one of these. The first is Project Lead the Way Launch. This program is used in our ISC schools, Arcola and Roscoe Nix, during the school year for students in grades pre-K through 5. And this began back in 2019 and continues today. And there's even been a great partnership established between Roscoe Nix Elementary School and Springbrook High School, where the students come together and they really get to connect Project Lead the Way in elementary school with Project Lead the Way in high school. We also have a partnership with Kid Museum, which started with a specialty grant through MSDE back in 2018. And from there, we extended this partnership to all Title I schools as part of our Title I summer programs. And so Kid Museum does develop programming for the summer that is designed to introduce students to STEM and 21st century skills by activating them as makers, to really build their agency and confidence and problem solving, as well as to develop their skills in design, engineering, and coding. And the third and final program is Defined Learning. As students enter their older elementary years, we've been able to provide them with project-based learning and enrichment through exploration and experiences with STEM careers through the program Defined Learning. And the focus of the program is really on building future-ready skills and allowing students to apply standards to their content areas. And this is a program that is utilized during the summer with students in grades 4 through 5 in Title I schools. Next slide, please. So as you've heard, summer is an innovative time for us, and for the past 3 years we've been able to really provide those enriching project-based learning experiences for our students in Title I schools through those partnerships that I shared. And so it has been exciting to see the number of students who have been able to receive enriched learning experiences grow, which is reflected in the table. So we have really been able to grow that from 2020 through 2022 as we have expanded our programming and our number of schools as well. And now I'll be handing it back to Jeannie, I believe, to share how these opportunities have supported the expansion of access over time.
Next slide, please. So let's look at the results from an aerial view. So we're looking at the Centers for Enriched Studies, and we wanted you to see a 5-year snapshot. I'm going to bring your attention to some key pieces that are really important. We're not going to digest everything on this slide, but I want you to take a look at the 2016, which is the pre-METIS report, where we had parent application, we had review committees, and then we were aware of named schools during the process. So at that time, we had invited roughly 71 African American students to the programs, 46 Hispanic Latino, 61 students who were receiving farms, and then there were roughly 250 to 325 students who were identified in the wait pool, meaning if other students said no, we would invite these students. The schools would get this information and then they could program for them in 4th grade. But now let's take a look at the green in 2021, 5 years later. So now we have central review. We now have local norms. We also have an established threshold and a lottery. So let's look at the difference. So African American students who are being identified in the regional programs to be placed, because now we have a lottery, moved from 71 to 134. For Hispanic Latino, 46 to 129. And then for students in farms, which is a significant difference, 61 students in 2016 to 2021, 235. So that's just for students placed in the regional programs. We have thousands more of students who are identified, and you'll see that in the last column, 1,000 plus, where these students who are identified are getting enrichment. So it's not that you have to get, the CES is one place, it's a continuum of services. You'll get services whether you're in your local school and whether you're in a regional program. And here's the beauty of this. Our goal of this was not necessarily to expand the centers. The goal of this was to really expand enriched services in local schools, make all of our local elementary schools strong, viable options. So now we're seeing families determining whether they want to go to a regional program or stay at their local school because the options are very comparable. So that is exactly what we want, and that's what we're seeing. So as we're looking at and talking about students who are receiving services and farms, that's where we're seeing the biggest gains. So we can go ahead and go to the next slide and open it up for some questions at this time, since you've received a lot of information.
Okay, we'll open this up to the committee. Any questions? Ms. Silvestre?
Thank you. Could you expand a little bit about how the coach works? Pull out, what does that look like in an elementary school, and how do they support an entire school?
Of course. So our coaches actually sit on planning teams with the grade levels, so grades K1 or 2, and it could be a combination. They also engage in classroom support, so to speak. So sometimes you'll see primary talent development look like co-teaching. Sometimes you will see primary talent development look like small group instruction over within a reading block or a math block. And sometimes you will see the primary talent development coach sitting just outside the classroom with a group of students to engage. We've seen all of those models when we go out to visit. And then, as I mentioned, with the participation of the primary talent development coach on grade level teams, they are able to look for opportunities for enrichment even when they are not present. So as the teachers are going through a planning session, the primary talent development coach is chiming in and saying, oh, here's a resource for you, or you can also consider this instructional strategy.
Okay. And again, this is before they get identified as
Yes,
qualifying for services.
Right. This is K1 and 2. Identification occurs in
Grade 2.
grade 2. Okay. So yes, that's the time frame for it.
Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Wondrowski, anything?
Thank you.
Okay. The coaches, there's one for each Title I school?
For each elementary Title I school, we have a .5 primary talent development coach.
Okay. You may have said that, but I missed it. I'm
I
sorry.
may not have said it. It's okay.
Okay, a .5. That's good. All right. Project Lead the Way. You said Springbrook, and where else?
So Roscoe Nix, one of our innovative school calendar locations, they have Project Lead the Way as part of their signature programming.
Okay.
Springbrook is a high school within their cluster, and because there's Project Lead the Way at the elementary level and also at the high school level, the primary talent development coach at Roscoe Nix invited Springbrook High School students to support a really engaging activity that they have once a year where the Springbrook High School students
serve to showcase some of their Project Lead the Way high school level activities. So you'll see robotic stations, you'll see stations where the primary children are working on a primary concept, and the high school students are also supporting that.
Well, Project Lead the Way is in other high schools as well, but they may not have the connection with
Yes.
the elementaries as
Right.
this does.
Yes.
Okay, I don't know, I've seen high school students work at Magruder with students in science, and the students have tasks that they have to do with little sticks and balloons, and it's fantastically interesting, and they do a great job on that. So I know that it's really important to have the high school students as leaders.
Just a quick
Sylvester.
follow-up. The coaches have other roles in the school, or this is their sole function?
Great question. Because it's a .5, many of our Title I principals pair the .5 with another part, primary talent development, or GT liaison, gifted and talented liaison. In some cases, the principals choose to use the other .5 as a focus position. We only have a very few that are solely primary talent development coaches for .5.
And this just comes out of the general operating budget?
This comes out of our Title I district-wide budget.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah. I had a question about that too, who really allocates that. The Kid Museum, or the Kids Museum, how often do the kids go, or, how does that work? Because I know it's in the summer and they may not have as much time. Go ahead.
Right. So it's actually built in as part of their day. So every single day, and for students in grades, I believe it was 3 and 4 last year, they had an experience, a Kid Museum experience. So staff from Kid Museum actually come in, provide training for our teachers. They develop the curriculum and programming, and then we purchase the materials. And so students have a daily, about 45 to 60-minute block of STEM where they are utilizing that Kid Museum curriculum.
Okay. And they do get to go to the museum at some point, no?
So during the summer, they do not. We do have a handful of Title I schools who do have a partnership with Kid Museum during the school year, and they do visit the museum. Also, our middle schools in the summer go and visit Kid Museum as well.
Yeah, because we went, and it was very interesting, so I know the kids would really
It
get a
is.
lot out of it.
Yes.
Oh, and you did say this, and I think that it can't be said enough, that students that are identified and their parents want them to be in programs can do it at a center, possibly, or at their home schools, and that the curriculum is the same. I think that's important, too. Any other questions, concerns?
So I just wanted to respond to that, Dr. Daka. Yeah, so what's really important for our community to know is that we have a continuum of services. So we have the local services, and we also have regional services. And so we know that parents might have preferences, but we are committed to making sure that the students who are identified have services and that they'll get them. So we work with our principals and our staff at the schools to ensure that. And when there are questions, at any point, if a student gets identified for needing services, the student will get services.
Good.
It's really important.
Thank you. I had another question about one of the graphs that had low numbers of Asian American and white students, and that's because the population is low at the schools for those particular students.
That's correct. Our Title I schools are, based on data, about 51% Hispanic Latino, and there's just a smaller percentage of white and Asian students in our buildings.
But they can be in the program as well, and then are in the program according to the graphs. Okay.
Yes.
And I don't know, I have one more question about the math score where the Latino students are under the bar? What does that mean exactly? Oh, here it is. I don't know, this doesn't have a number. Extended learning opportunities impact.
This is slide 12. So non-farms. So the data shows that, let me make sure I'm reading it correctly. Bear with me.
I wrote over it.
It just reads
Non-farms,
non-farms, Hispanic,
Hispanic.
Latino.
Right.
And it's the affected size.
Right. My understanding is that when looking at the difference in performance, that the non-farms, Hispanic, Latino, that the performance was, was less than. I'll need to check.
Yeah,
on
we
that.
need to check that
I'll
one.
need to check
Okay.
with the OSA on that.
All right, thank you.
I do have one question.
Okay.
Just in reference to the numbers that, of the 5-year snapshot, expanding access, the numbers, the identified in the weight pool is how you have it titled. You did mention that all kids receive some sort of, so what is the weight pool, number one? And number two, how are we ensuring that each student, so for example, I know if you don't end up in accelerated math, I'm assuming that's what we still call it, they do cohorts, or they won't put you in a special program if there seems to be a cohort of students that can help support what you're looking for in your own school. How are we actually ensuring that? And what happens to the students who they might test, as appropriate, but don't have that cohort and don't have any seats available?
So to go back to your first question, so the weight pool, that is like older language. So we now call it a lottery pool currently, but the weight pool was designed because we'll have students who are invited to a regional program and then decline, or they move.
Yeah.
So we wanted to make sure we can pull up other students for the programs. And so that's really important. What we do now in our current process is that if you're identified, that's the whole point of like building a bigger table, is if you're identified, there were some philosophical questions, but you identified me as needing enriched, but I didn't get into a regional program. It sounds counterintuitive. So the idea was we needed to build programming. So that's what we've done. So now, if you're identified, you can get enrichment in elementary school through the enriched literacy curriculum, benchmark advanced. Math trajectory is a separate trajectory. The Centers for Enriched Studies is not math dependent. It's not a math curriculum. It's humanities. So that part's important. For the middle schools, when a student is identified, in order to ensure that there is space, we provide all the middle schools a centralized list using the data that we have, but then schools may have additional data that they can look to identify additional students. So the goal is that every student who is identified can have access, and we work with schools to ensure. I think an interesting piece of this is that we are in the future looking at how we can partner with Virtual Academy. Because as you're discussing about the cohorts, you're right, there might be some challenges where there might not be enough students to identify to have staffing. So we're really trying to partner and explore. We want every student to have enriched services who needs them. So that is our commitment.
And to add to that, she talked about sending the list to middle school, but we do the same for elementary as well, so that if a student is not placed in a center program, the school receives a list of those names of students that must be enriched or accelerated. All of our students we expect to be enriched, but that will receive accelerated instruction. And so it is that expectation. And we will work with schools, we work with principals all the time, who might have smaller numbers that may not make a full class. And we've been very creative about how we make that happen. And we have looked at virtual opportunities as well, in addition to collaborating with other elementary schools, neighboring elementary schools, to ensure that all of our students who we've identified as needing accelerated services get those services.
Okay, I just very always curious about the accountability aspect of it, because I do know that there's only so many number of seats in our special programs, and we have a lot of students that end up being identified as gifted, or I don't necessarily feel like I always see, or that the parents always see specifically how their child's being targeted if they're not in a Fox Chapel type program or whatever it might be.
And when we get to we're going to move to the next section, which is talking about our academic programming and what we are doing from the curriculum side. We can talk a little bit more about how we provide those supports to students.
Okay, I'll look forward to that. And it comes up a lot at PTA meetings, so thank you.
All right. I think that's it for the questions, so we'll turn it back to you.
Okay. Okay, next slide, please. Good morning, everyone. So I am going to be discussing the literacy and math, enrichment and acceleration opportunities in elementary schools and in middle schools. So in elementary, there are 3 ways that students receive literacy enrichment. We have Benchmark Advance with Enrichment, which is available to all schools for students in grades 2 through 5. We have the Enriched Literacy Curriculum, ELC, which is available in 15 Title I schools. And we have one Center for Enriched Studies program in a Title I school right now. All 3 programs include complex literary and informational texts, writing through the writing process, and interdisciplinary projects. All 3 programs seek to develop communication skills, creative thinking skills, critical thinking skills, and problem-solving skills. Students are also given the opportunity to solve real-world issues in all 3 programs. Some key resources that are used in all programs are the Junior Great Books, William and Mary, Jacob's Ladder, and Lucy Calkins' writing curriculum. For this school year, new novels were approved and novel studies were added to include more culturally diverse authors and topics such as race and identity. Implementation of best practices in gifted education that are in these programs are student choice, inquiry-based projects, student interest assignments, greater depth and breadth of the content, and creating original work. If we look at the next slide, this slide shows Title I data for students in grade 4 that were enrolled in the ELC, the Enriched Literacy Curriculum, from 2019 through 2022. So as you can see, our numbers are pretty stable. We have not had a significant increase or decrease in enrollment. And so to that end, it is our goal to increase the ELC enrollment numbers by providing more coaching to schools in the area of using data to identify more students for the program. One of the amazing things about the ELC program that's quite different from the Centers program is that schools do have the autonomy to look at their data and add more students to the program. And so we are going to be working with the schools to make sure that students that should benefit from the program are actually benefiting from the program. Next slide, please. The Global Humanities courses are a natural progression for students that are articulating from a Centers program or an ELC program, where there's heavy emphasis on reading and from an inquiry lens. We have Global Humanities courses in grades 6, 7, and 8. And all 3 programs go beyond the core content They have year-long research projects, interdisciplinary projects, and embed additional literature with inquiry. Also, there are culminating activities, such as sixth grade has a Model UN project addressing the global issue and gender equality in education. And for seventh graders, they have a National History Day project where students have the opportunity to compete at the county, state, and national level. Next slide, please. Eureka Math has built-in enrichment in grades K to 5. There are 4 tiers of enriched support students can receive as part of their elementary mathematics experience, regardless of course enrollment. Teachers enrich instruction beginning at Tier 1 and moving to successive tiers if students progress and exhibit a need for increased rigor during daily lessons. The need for enriched instruction is often topic dependent. So for this reason, students may receive Tier 1 instruction for one topic, but then Tier 2 for another. For some topics, students may not need enrichment at all. The enrichment allows the students to think creatively, outside of the box, often coming up with their own numbers to solve equations. Acceleration is warranted when deepening the learning and enrichment does not yield student growth. Next slide, please. So when we look at this slide of enrollment for Math 4-5 students from 2019 through 2022, we see that the enrollment for Math 4-5 has decreased over the past few years. This decrease was intentional due to the reduction of instruction caused by the pandemic. MCPS had to make adjustments to the curriculum and pacing time, therefore cautioned to move too quickly in order to ensure students had a strong foundation in math. During this time, the goal was to cover major standards, which are the standards that lead to Algebra 1, leaving the choice to remove or condense some of the minor standards. I'll give you a minute to look at the data. Next slide, please. This slide shows the different math courses that middle school students can take while in middle school. I do want to first point out that you notice that there are different colors of courses on the slide. The gray boxes show the Maryland College and Career Readiness Progression classes or courses. The yellow blocks show the compacted math courses. The purple box shows the enriched math course that's in middle school. The green box shows the high school credit course, and the turquoise box shows honors high school credit courses. We purposely left off arrows on this particular slide because there's not one way that a student progresses in math through middle school. So for example, a student could take Math 6, Math 7, and then Math 8, leaving Algebra 1 for 9th grade. And that is the standard for Maryland College and Career Readiness. However, an accelerated path could be AMP 6+, which is Applied Mathematics, Accelerated Mathematics 6+, then Accelerated Mathematics 7+, and then they could take Algebra 1 in 8th grade. Another accelerated path could be the purple box, which is the Applied Investigations into Mathematics course, and then they could take Algebra 1 and then Honors Geometry. However, you could have another student that takes applied investigations into mathematics in 6th grade, but then they may need to take Math 8 in 7th grade in order to continue to master the pre-algebra standards, leaving Algebra 1 for 8th grade. So as you can see, there are many different pathways for math in middle school, and there's no one way for students to progress. It shouldn't be, for example, a student takes applied investigations into mathematics and then they have to take Algebra 1 in 7th grade. Schools should always look at data and determine the best course of action for every single student. Next slide, please. So now if we look at the grade 6 math enrollment data for this school year, we do see that the majority of our students are enrolled in Math 6. Next, we have students enrolled in Accelerated Math 6+. Next, we have students in the Applied Investigations into Mathematics course. We have a few students in the Accelerated Math 7+ course. And then we have a handful of students that are taking Algebra 1 as a sixth grade student. I'll give you guys a minute to look at the numbers. And I do want to share that in Title I schools, we are noticing that students are enrolled in all courses. Okay. At this time, I'd like to pass it on to Ms. LaGrange.
Thank you so much. Next slide, please. Wonderful, thank you. So at all of our Title I middle schools, students have an opportunity to earn high school credit courses in technology, world languages, and math. The great thing about the opportunity in technology is that students who are interested in taking more advanced courses at the high school level, such as coding for an example, they're able to take care of their first level credits while they're still in middle school. For world languages, by starting in middle school, students are able to not only earn the seal of biliteracy when they get to high school, if they choose to do that, but at the middle school level, we're also able to slow things down. So there's an opportunity to take year-long courses, high school courses where a semester can be extended over the course of the year, which still provides students with the rigor and the content, but it allows them to do so at age-appropriate levels. For math, as Ms. Clark shared, students in our Title I middle schools are not only taking algebra, but in looking at data, we found that students in Title I schools are successfully completing honors geometry, and some are accessing honors algebra too. Next slide, please. Thank you. Another rigorous program that's available to two of our Title I middle school is the Middle Years Program, which is connected to the International Baccalaureate Program, and this starts in 6th grade and continues through 10th grade. What's nice about the Middle Years Program is that it is inclusive and it's a whole school model, which again allows students to achieve at high levels. They engage in a rigorous coursework, but also have teachers who are able to support them and make sure that they're being successful. One thing that's also nice about the Middle Years Program is that it allows for a study of a second language, and the culminating project again is an opportunity for students to do their own research, to show that they're able to do research, and then to come up with their own project. Again, it's a summative project that they're then able to share with the community, and that is assessed by International Baccalaureate. Next slide, please. Perfect. Thank you. This year, we also received a one-year grant funding through the Javits Grant. And this grant has allowed our accelerated and enriched instruction support teachers to engage in extra professional development sessions, to engage in book studies, and receive additional planning opportunities with other members in the district, other AISD teachers who then engage with them as thought partners. What's also nice is that they were able to attend a conference this October where they were able to receive resources that they can then use at their schools and increase their capacity in understanding gifted learners and increasing their access to advanced learning opportunities. Next slide, please. So for next steps, our goal is to continue to incorporate enrichment and project-based learning into Title I's funded projects and extend learning opportunities for students. And again, our hope is to do this not only during the academic day, but also through after-school programs, through the extended day opportunity, and summer programs. We will also continue to analyze findings and apply recommendations for the primary talent development program evaluation, which again looks at enrichment opportunities for students in grades K through 2, and ensure that we are monitoring data and again ensuring impact on our students. Did you want to add something?
No, thank you very much. At this time, we'll take questions, and we may ask our math supervisors to come up if you have math questions as well.
Okay. Questions at the moment? All right. Then we can have the math supervisors. Well, I don't, oh, Ms. Silvestri has a question.
Thank you. This is very interesting and fantastic work, so thank you for everything you're doing in this regard. I'm trying to think of if I were a teacher in a Title I school implementing this work, what kind of support do I need in order to make this happen? So we have your, and correct me if I'm wrong, elementary, so I'm in a classroom with 18 children, and so they're not all, well, okay, talent development. Okay, how do you support teachers so that they're able to differentiate and, you know, take advantage of the coach and use it into the their general instruction?
We've tried to make sure that the primary talent development coach is seen as a partner as well as a coach. So this isn't something that has to be heavily infused. There are lessons that are a part of the primary talent development program, but there's also opportunity for enrichment within the curriculum. So our goal is not to make this an add-on for teachers. It's really to make this seamless. And what that looks like is through co-planning, being intentional around the co-planning so that the enrichment occurs alongside what's already in the curriculum. And then again, it's also around shifting the teacher's thinking and mindset so that they're looking not just at academic content, but also let's look at the 7 learning behaviors. Let's look at persistence. Let's look at a student's ability to communicate, a student's ability to lead, a student's ability to persevere. Look at those learning behaviors to say, this is a part of being gifted and how can I nurture that? And the coach comes in, they provide coaching strategies for the teacher to use with the student. So our goal is not for it to seem like it's something extra. It really is supposed to be seamless.
And then this presentation is Title I, but we have a lot of children in poverty throughout our system. And so what's good for children that are in talent development is good for all children, even if once they've been identified, right? The practices of nurturing those 7 behaviors is good for all children. So what is my question? Or could you just talk about how do we take that system-wide, right? Because we want this for all of our students, not just Title I schools. And again, thank you for the work that you're doing there, but how do we, and one of the things that I don't like to hear is, we're doing this as a side, STEM as a side. Well, why aren't we doing it as a part of the STEM, the science lesson, right? Why does it have to be an aside? If it's good enough for enrichment, why isn't it a part of the basic science lesson of the day? So just what your thoughts are on those topics.
Yeah, can I just add to that for a little bit? Just that, because that was my question, was it shouldn't, why I specified it as Title I schools, but use their funds to support all students. So I was touring one of our Title I schools, and they were using, I guess it was their .5 to support an additional science teacher that came in and taught all, they were doing project stuff. So I think they had like fish in a thing and some sand and something else and whatever, but it was for all kids. And so how are we, doesn't it seem like that would be a better use of our funds? But go ahead.
So I think I'm a little, there's a lot. There's a lot there, so I'm trying to slow down. I think what I heard Ms. Silvestri mention was just how we could expand this to reach other children in non-Title I schools. I will say that we are doing a study now, or OSA is conducting a study, and maybe the results of that study could support us in doing some type of expansion outside of our Title I space. And then I think I heard you, Ms. Mondrowski, mention that the science kind of on the side is not the best model, or these activities on the side. And we have worked.
I think they are good models.
Then I must have misunderstood it.
I said that.
Okay.
Yeah.
There was a lot coming at me.
So I'll very quickly address the science, and then I asked Sheila Berlinger to come up and talk a little bit about what we are doing for all students, even outside of Title I schools, around how we are supporting teachers with capturing that kind of thinking that we want for students, particularly in math. But with our science, certainly you're right. We want to see the kind of learning that we had, that hands-on learning taking place in all of our classrooms. And we're actually working now with our new science standards and doing some work at the elementary level to upgrade the science curriculum to make sure that type of learning is reflective in the classroom. And so we're doing that work, but it definitely requires a lot in terms of planning, preparation, materials, things of that nature. So we are looking to ensure that our science is more engaging for our students and it's aligned with the newer standards that we have from MSDE. I want Sheila to just talk about the work that she's doing to support teachers around the mathematical thinking and growing those types of learners.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm excited to be here. Can I make one statement about the science and math also, and then I'll shift just to talk about the math? At the curriculum level, the elementary science and math teams are also working together to look at the intersectionality between the next generation science standards and the Maryland College and Career Ready math standards in order to elevate and show the students the relevance that these things aren't existing in silos. So that is all happening in the background as well as we're moving forward and the science department is really developing and flourishing. So I just wanted to add that to it. At the elementary level, you can't do everything in a silo. There has to be some integration or you're not going to get all the way through your day. So the first thing I'd like to acknowledge is that many of the aspects that you're asking about is exactly how elementary mathematics is now approaching how to best enrich the math experience for students. It's no longer a pullout or on the side or in addition. It is integrated, it is data-driven. It starts as early as kindergarten. There is an expectation that as students are showing an understanding or a developing understanding of a topic, that the teachers have tools in order to stretch them beyond what the curriculum resources on the page might show. And Mrs. Clark shared with you that there is a tiered, structured approach in order to enrich the mathematics so the students have more rigorous and complex experiences. Sometimes it means starting with the hardest problem. Sometimes it means reworking the problem so that there's no one single answer, but rather it's open-ended and the students are now engaging collaboratively around a particular problem. All of that is an outgrowth of how we've been teaching the teachers how to customize their lessons in preparation for teaching. When they come to planning, one of the things they do is they think about the students coming in the next day and identify which one of these most rigorous problems does each child need. No longer is the whole class doing the same 20 problems in the independent practice. Rather, different groups and different individuals are assigned different problems. So when Mrs. Clark was elevating that Eureka Math has some of that enrichment integrated, it does, because all of their problem sets build in complexity from easiest to hardest. Teachers are assigning different problems to different students. That's the first step that they take. From there, they have the ability to overlay additional problem structures, as I mentioned, where they can turn a problem around to make it open-ended. So now there's multiple solutions, or students need to apply it to a new context. Or students have to go through an example of a problem and either confirm or refute the thinking in that problem from the beginning to the end. They see the work a fictitious child created, and they have to be able to justify whether that thinking is accurate or inaccurate. Elementary mathematics, the Maryland College and Career Ready standards expect that students can not only compute procedurally, but they can also model their mathematics and they can reason their way through from one situation to another. There's a lot of language involved in addition to just doing the mathematical practices that we probably grew up experiencing. And all of that creates a different dimension of expectation. So there's content standards about the math, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction, fractions. There are also thinking standards, creating models, recognizing patterns, being able to reason that are built into the curriculum that expect the teachers to do this. We have then partnered with the Office of Accelerated and Enriched Instruction, as well as the curriculum writers at Great Minds, to build this structured approach to enrichment that creates more and more rigorous experiences for students while getting deeper within the grade level standard. If we find out that we get to the top of our pyramid and we have children for whom that's still not enough rigor, they're not growing anymore because they really have it. That's when we have the conversation about grade advancement, when you move on to the next and you accelerate. We want to enrich as deeply as we can first, and then move on to the acceleration. The research is growing that the longer we can keep the elementary students in those elementary standards, the greater likelihood that they're going to be not just get across the finish line at algebra, but be highly successful in algebra. So we want it to be deeper, not necessarily faster.
It's super important to support our teachers in mathematics so that they feel comfortable, because we've learned math different ways, and elementary school teachers are, unlike high school teachers, they don't specialize in math, but they have to be able to.
And that is a growing phenomenon with science as well, as teachers need to become experts in content areas that they may not have been prior. We do offer direct asynchronous training that teachers can engage in. There are modules and tools available to them for an on-the-spot, in the moment, I need something, and they can go pull that. The staff development teacher is a point of contact for us in most elementary schools. In some of our elementary schools that have a little additional staffing, such as Title I schools, there may be a dedicated math leader, either part-time or full-time, who can be that coach to teachers. And then there's the partner of the primary talent developer in the Title I schools as well. So there's multiple adults in the building that are connecting with us and connecting with their teachers in order to provide those supports as well. I have 3 instructional specialists who are also each assigned to the 7 elementary schools we're at now. So they're on the ground more than they're here. You'll see lights off here if you walk through our suite a lot, because that's generally where we are, who work directly with teachers and with leaders as they're getting their heads and hearts around how to really deepen this experience for children.
Shall I continue?
I had some thoughts when you were talking about the 18 students, and we were talking about cohorts. So of the 18 students, they would all be in the same cohort? Or would they have other students involved? Because that's what you were getting at, having this teaching for all kinds of students, so.
Yeah,
Lower class sizes at Title I schools, so how are students grouped for mathematics at the elementary level?
Those are, at the elementary level, I mean, those are school-based decisions. However, we encourage heterogeneous grouping across.
You do?
Yeah, we do. And encourage that you don't want to necessarily evenly divide, especially if you have a small number of students. You want to make sure that a student has 1 or 2 or 3 other peers in the room as well. So when you are able to provide those differentiated tasks, they have peers with whom they can engage. So you want to make sure that you keep a couple together in the room, but there's also a lot of value in them hearing from each other.
Yes, because you did mention that the same thing wouldn't be for each group. The teacher would have to
Right.
design, yeah.
And
okay.
and I think the important thing, and I'm glad you raised that, is that Eureka Math as a curricular tool really has a tremendous number of resources. And one of our goals this year, we haven't added any new training to teachers' plates related to math. Our focus this year is to really get strong at what we've been learning how to do over the last 3 years as we've taken on the rollout in the middle of the pandemic. And so there is, this year has been dedicated towards really unpacking all the resources that are available and helping teachers begin to wrap their heads around everything they are empowered to do with it. It's one of the reasons Eureka was selected. Teachers have to make decisions about the children sitting in front of them.
Okay, thank you. Also, I think during the conversation with you, all of you, you were saying that principals and the coaches may add students to the gifted and talented programs or the cohorts that have been getting advanced work. This is important for people to know that it's not the end at the first grouping that's put together. Also, I just wanted to say the human resources is very key in providing teachers who have the right background. I know for a while they've been saying for middle school they want people who are strong in math or strong in literacy in order to teach, not the general, because they're certified to the 8th grade as general teachers as they are in elementary school. But anyhow, I just wanted to say that human resources does work on that, and they do the best they can with that. And then the principals kind of go and look for certain kinds of teachers or persons who will really fill their needs. And also, way back in your speaking about literacy, you mentioned informational reading or reading for information, which is, so you had titles of books and that kind of thing, but reading for information, from what I've read, that's where we're not doing well with our students. And by 3rd grade, they should be introduced to some of those things, and we need to really push on that because it's important that they are able to read and able to synthesize and analyze what they're reading. And I think that would really be helpful to continue doing that. I know you're doing it. So, anything else?
no, I was just going to clarify. I feel like my question, if you will, was maybe misunderstood. And I was using the science classroom as an example of something that I had seen where, you know, because to your point about what you said, the data is now showing that, you know, the longer you can keep kids fully, you know, in a stable curriculum with acceleration for everybody, I guess is sort of what I was just saying that with the enrollment numbers seem so low, especially right now, and I know that the pandemic had a lot to do with all of that, but just making sure that we are providing the best opportunities for all students with what we have, as opposed to trying to target, like, you know, just a couple of kids. So like I said, the science thing was just an example, because when I was touring the school, I went in and I saw the classroom and it looked really neat, and I was like, oh, what class is this? And principal said, well, that's actually, we use our 0.5, I think she said it was, to have a scientist who comes in, 1 to 2 or 3 times a week or whatever it might have been, 2 times a week, I guess, and works with all of the students. So I was just curious where we were in terms of thinking, that type of thinking, more than anything else.
Well, I think that we have made a really strong commitment over the last few years to ensure that we have enrichment opportunities for all of our students, in literacy and mathematics especially. And so with benchmark for enrichment, with enrichment for all, and again with the mathematics, ensuring that we are providing those experiences and we're helping teachers as they're doing their planning, because we do feel that strong foundation with grade level standards is going to allow students, particularly when they get to middle school, to be able to move on different paths, and that's really what we hope to see. We know that every student is different, but that strong foundation early is critical, and we want to be able to provide that to all of our students.
Where are we with after-school clubs and things like that? I know, there are some schools, particularly elementary schools, where if their PTA is capable of raising, more money, then they will frequently pay programs to come in. I forget what the name of this after-school program was, or even there was one before school as well. But, and they did hands-on projects, and definitely in math and science, the STEM type of things. But not every school can afford that. And I don't like programs where our kids have to pay necessarily to participate.
Well, I will share that through grant funding, we did provide our elementary school, all of our schools, with the opportunity to have after-school activities. If they just needed to submit a very small application to the Office of School Support and Wellbeing, Shella Cherry running that as well. So we do have many of our elementary schools who took advantage of that, not all. I would have to look at the numbers to find out what types of programs and what schools.
Okay, I was just curious. Like I said, I'd like it to see it be available to everyone for free.
Yeah.
So.
If I could add, in Title I schools, extended day programming is one of the categories for principals to decide how they want to spend their school-based allocation. And we have found a pretty high percentage of our principals have allocated funds for extended day, especially schools that don't have some of the after-school programs like Excel Beyond the Bell. And our the programs run the gamut, but recently we've seen a lot of STEM activities. We just approved some orders for a school that's working on having their STEM extended day for the fall or the first semester, and then again offered in the second semester, and these are all free of cost.
Okay. We're coming up to budget season, so I'm always just curious. Yeah.
Ms. Sylvester?
Very interested in the 7 learning behaviors. I don't think that I've heard that before, so that's really interesting. And the STEM activity, it could be writing, right? It's about creating an activity that's going to expose the children to be able to practice some of these learning behaviors, and just a something to do where they're being creative and perceptive. And but I know we want to emphasize STEM, of course. My question is about, this conversation brings me back to the ERS study, where the data showed that our Black and brown children that were testing high in 3rd grade were not being placed in enriched mathematics in 4th grade. And so I guess my question is, how do we ensure that that's not happening anymore? And what does the data tell us today?
So actually, I'll let Sheila share, but we actually, for the first time last school year, for mathematics, looked at students at the central level and worked with accelerated and enriched instruction. You want to share what we did to address that issue?
Yes, and this was a direct outgrowth of the ERS study, as a matter of fact. What we went ahead and did centrally is begin to identify the general profile of the student who was showing the greatest success in the accelerated math courses. Because enrichment's available at every grade level now, and that was intentional, so that one of our charges was not only looking at how students are being identified for accelerated courses, but expanding the on-ramps for opportunities for enrichment, both younger and older. So all of these pieces fit together. In terms of the course itself, both coming out of the pandemic and in response to the ERS study, we got together with the Office of Shared Accountability, both AEI and curriculum, and we started looking at the data for the students who were showing the greatest successes in the accelerated courses, and there were multiple data points that were being filtered for, so students could have a variety of combinations of data. It wasn't just a single test score. It's not just how you performed in math or just what your grade point average was, but rather if you were showing a propensity, you were on an upward trajectory, and you had 2 or 3 out of 4 or 5 of the data points that were sort of mixed and matched, then you would be surfaced and schools would receive names across all of their third grade of the students who were hitting these data points consistently across the board. And those children were expected to be offered accelerated math. Now, keeping in mind that I'm a long way from a classroom and I'm a long way from children, I'm only looking at numbers on a page. My principals and my classroom teachers who are working with children day in and day out know who they are more comprehensively. So in addition to an initial list, there was guidance around how to go through your data child by child so that you could begin to ask questions and surface additional children to recommend for the accelerated courses. We've been playing with those numbers each year for the last couple of years because we've only done it twice so far till we find the sweet spot for really making sure we have the right combination of data points for the children. But the idea is that the schools are receiving a list of who to start with and then they're adding to it. So what that's done is it's standardized the starting point so that there's consistency across the district from a starting point in terms of who you're going to recommend for those classes. It also helped make sure that we were recommending students who really were ready to begin speeding up in grade 4. Some students do better speeding up in grade 6. Some students do better speeding up in grade 7. Some need us to speed them up in 1 or 2. But we wanted to make sure that that was only one piece of identifying when we're going to begin to accelerate students. But in response to the ERS study, we went ahead and started a central screening process that would take some of that judgment out of it. So it's not starting at a school table, it's starting across the district, and then it continues at the school table. We have several elementary schools who've done an excellent job of really diving into their data in the spring, and then they circle back in September or October after about the first 4 to 6 weeks of school and look across their 4th grade again. Did we put the right children in 4-5? Did we miss any who are absolutely flourishing at the start of the school year? And then they make one more move. So we recommend they have to use the list we give them in the spring. They're then expected to look at their data and elevate more students as they're coming out of 3rd grade at the end of the year. And then we strongly encourage one more look at the data again in the fall.
Great, thank you.
Another year or 2, I'll be able to give you some more data about how well that worked.
Wow. You go ahead.
Can I continue?
No.
Early in the presentation, one of your slides talked about local norming. Could you go through that again, what that means?
So what's the research is demonstrating, and Dr. Plucker and Dr. Peters were commented in one of the research components, is that local norming is a situation where you're comparing students in similar situations. So that's the part that's important. So in the past and throughout the system, we used national norms with the publisher, but we have the opportunity here to look at MCPS norms, local norms, just for our students. So that helps us see the data differently. And we learned a little bit in our first year of applying our new assessment. When we did some of our transformational work, we were seeing lots of our students were performing in the 90th percentile and higher. And so that does not help us necessarily disaggregate the students among others, like who really needs the program. We already have enriched curriculum and robust curriculum in all of our schools. We wanted to make sure that we were identifying students who really needed more support and more robust curriculum. So that's how we use local norms, is looking at MCPS students only.
Okay. And my final question is about parent engagement, or actually accountability, back to Ms. Madraski's question. So if my child is identified as needing enrichment, how do I know as a parent that they're getting it? I guess accountability-wise, just system-wide, I'm sure it varies greatly school to school, where the different schools and teachers are in being able to provide the enrichment. What should we be thinking about as a board in terms of kind of creating more consistency system-wide in this regard?
So in a few ways, we are able to communicate that. Obviously, when students are going through their central review and they get letters from our office and we say your child's place will be in their local school and will receive enriched programming. So there's a letter that's sent home to many of our families. And so that's one way that they learn about it. Certainly, as Sheila said, schools will be identifying students throughout the process, and we ask that they also are sharing that information with families to let them know what courses or programs that they're going to be in, what that might look like. Certainly, when teachers are meeting with parents and conferences and things of that nature, talking about the type of programming, the enrichment that they will receive, or accelerated program is also very appropriate at that time. So we ask our schools to make sure that they're communicating with families about the type of academic program they'll receive, but we also, from the central office, want to make sure that parents have that understanding as well.
And so how do you create consistency across the school system so that, what my child is getting at this school is as good of a enriched instruction as the other school?
Well, that is the question, and we do get comments from parents periodically about the consistency. That is when we do our work with our instructional leaders, our staff development teachers, reading specialists, math content coaches, we are trying to set a level of consistency around the expectations for instruction taking place in our classrooms. Do you want to add to that?
So that actually was one of the reasons for developing the 4-tiered structure to enrichment in elementary math. When there had historically been challenge and anecdotal evidence from teachers and from parents that enrichment prior to coming forward with Eureka Math was inconsistently provided, and that the resources weren't always available and the teachers weren't entirely sure what they should be doing or using. And so in response to both parents and teachers and the audit that gave us a tremendous amount of information back in 2018, we went ahead and partnered with Great Minds and AEI in order to develop a strategic but systematic, consistent approach to how to enrich the learning for the students across the county and what that sequence of steps is. The intent is to provide opportunities and resources. The teachers no longer have to go out and search for things. They're making decisions in their planning, and they're either refining something that's in front of them, or they're pulling from, depending on how high up the pyramid they are, they may be pulling some additional resources to supplement what students are doing. But the idea is that it uses the same structure. It uses the same problem-solving techniques. It addresses and encompasses the 7 learning behaviors that Michelle was describing for you. And it creates that rigorous and complex situation. But it's expected that all schools are using this approach to enrichment. And what we're working with schools on now is how they're tracking the data, how they're helping teachers build tools to collect that data. We create spaces where our instructional leaders can share the tools they're building. It's not one of those spaces where we centrally require communication on a day-to-day basis. However, we know that teachers need tools that are going to help them track all the information. We've also quantified when, as you know, on the elementary report card, there is a box to check if students have been engaging with and successful with enrichment. And we've quantified that to help teachers know when to check it and when not to check it. So again, consistency across the district, how to know when to report it on the report card, what the sequence of using the tools is for the student sitting in front of you, And then the last piece of it is teaching them how to use the data that's available out of our exit tickets and our other curricular tools to make the decision about which days which children need enrichment. In elementary math, it's not a program, but it is an instructional strategy that some students need for some topics and other students need for other topics. So there may be times when you are engaged in an enriched problem, and there may be times when you're not. If the teacher's doing it really well, the students may not even realize that's what's happening. If it's that differentiated all the time, then I liken it to, do you remember the old structure for reading groups? You'd have the bluebirds and the blackbirds and the cardinals, and the kids always knew who the top group was and the bottom group was. So we're not grouping kids like that anymore. Instead, the teacher's making decisions by topic around what kind of enrichment needs to be provided and for whom, and the groups change. So when it's done seamlessly, you really can't tell when you walk into the classroom that over here enrichment is happening and over here we're just focusing on the on-grade level building blocks. You'd have to really know by looking at what they're doing to know that, but it's not called out for the kids.
Thank you.
I don't know, based on that question about how are we having consistency and who's getting in, it's a very good question because it has been a concern about black and brown children, but I think many of the things that you're doing now, looking at their records and doing it centrally as well as at the school, and having the coaches who can nominate more students to be in these programs. And I think we're not relying as much on teacher recommendations, which has been a concern, and we're paying more attention to what the students want, what the parents want, and what you're seeing in the grades and the testing. So I think we're moving along the right path, but it's we were interrupted for 2 years because you started at least 4 years ago. So keep up doing that kind of work. We have great hopes that we'll do a better job because we know that the students, some of the students we've left behind have the leadership and the academic skills that we've overlooked, and that's why this presentation was really so good. Thank you so much. You've done a wonderful job presenting to us, and I know that you're working really well with the schools and with the students, and thank you so much for that. And I'm just going to take a point of privilege. This is my last committee meeting, and I have been so happy to work with this team, with Ms. Silvestri and Ms. Bondrowski, and we appreciate your work and your concern and your questions, and you're really digging into this. So I thank you so much for that. Thank you all, and it's important work, and we need to continue to do it, and I will read about you. So I don't know if there's nothing else. The next committee meeting will take place January 26th, 2023. So we want the parents to join, and we certainly are going to have staff back, and we want our staff out there to be able to look at the video too, to understand some of the things that are happening, maybe not in their school, or maybe they don't know as much about it, but there are ways to see some of the things that have already been discussed. And I said this last night when we had the hearing about the fiscal management team. So many of the things in there were really important that teachers and other staff and community needed to know about facilities and about our health programs and about our actuarial sciences and how pensions are calibrated. But anyway, thank you so much for your presentation, and I appreciate everything that you've done. And thank you, Ms. Sabrina, for your support, and for my chief of staff over there too. Thank you so much. Okay. Oh, I do this? We're finished.